Hey everyone, welcome back to the Unspoken Essentials podcast. I am your host, Al Charles Castillo, and today I'm talking with Manuela Torres-Orejuela. She is a content creator and is currently following her passion in creating music. In this episode, we cover topics about where her love for music stems from, when she began writing creatively, how music has served her and us therapeutically, and why trying new projects are stepping stones for our journey. Without further ado, enjoy the episode. I want to start off by saying thank you, Manuela Torres-Orejuela, for being a guest on the Unspoken Essentials podcast.
Yep. Hi.
I normally introduce my guests, by going over their accolades, but I feel our conversation will cover it all. So just give us a little introduction about yourself, if you don't mind.
All right. Hello. My name is Manuela Torres-Orejuela. I am culturally pretty diverse. I was born in Colombia, raised in South Florida, currently live in Bakersfield and spent a lot of time in LA, but I went to UCLA and studied gender and music industry. And then post-college, I worked in the music industry for a while, artistically, like creatively, I guess. But my interests have shifted. I want to be an artist now, so I make music, and yeah.
Oh, you got butterflies in my stomach. All right, I'm so excited. For the listeners, we've had this conversation. Oh, we've talked for so long. I don't know. Okay. Basically, what did you have for breakfast today? Just to start it off.
So every day I have coffee first thing in the morning, black coffee, because I intermittent fast, and then I don't eat until 12 p.m. because I've heard that breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. And I just had a banana, and I'm gonna have lunch after this. So
Awesome.
Coffee and a banana.
That's good with me. I actually am. Oddly enough, I'm intermittent fasting
Yeah,
as
what
well.
about you? Ooh.
Yeah,
What's your timeline?
same thing. 12. Well, for me now, I'm kind of extending it. So it used to be 12 to 8. Now it's gonna be 11 to 9. Just so, because of my whole anxiety thing, I've been noticing that I'm getting hungrier earlier. Oddly enough. So I'm giving myself that room and seeing if that changes anything. But I mainly do it because I like working out in the morning.
Yeah, I really respect that you're being kind to yourself about it, because if you set a rule and you're too strict about it, it can create shame. And
Definitely.
I feel like you're being very compassionate with yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
So I guess let's just get right into it. I
for
remember
sure.
our big conversation that you wanted to start off with was your childhood and your appearance and how you I guess you overcame it, or you're still going through with it. Do you mind talking about that a little bit more?
Sure. Super broad topic. I I guess I'm 25 years old now. But weirdly, I'm just now doing my inner child work, through therapy and stuff. And I've had a lot of nostalgia, and recovered memories popping up. And I'm realizing that my childhood really, really shaped who I truly am, my true self, right? And that a lot of the stuff I've been through in the last few years has forced me to create a mask. And so I've been diving back into my childhood, to find my true self again. This sounds really
You're good. No,
deep,
I agree. I'm
yeah.
actually, like I told you before we started the podcast, I've been doing my own self-development and my own digging
Yeah.
as to my true self. And it's always the big thing that I'm noticing is that no matter how many years or how many days or hours that you're actually taking to progress yourself, it's all impactful in its own way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so because we're in a pandemic right now, there's so much. I'm one of those people who is at home, right? I'm not an essential worker. I have a lot of hours at home, and it's allowed me to dive back into things that bring me joy. And I saw a tweet the other day that said, the things we did as kids, we never stopped liking that stuff. We just stopped doing it. And so every day I'm like, well, if I was a kid, if I was still a kid, what would I really love to do? I used to love to read. I used to love painting and coloring and going outside and scootering and biking. I had so many interests that I just let go of because, when you're told you need to grow up and stuff, and now I'm rejecting the idea of growing up. you know?
That's yeah, that's actually crazy that you say that, because this whole, like, this whole conversation that we're gonna have is gonna be really big, I feel like. And you bring up, like, just in general, you're what you're expressing to me is like your artistic expression was suppressed by all the stuff, that
Yeah.
just the idea of growing up, that people have to tell you, oh, you have to work a 9 to 5, you have to do this, do that. And
Yeah.
it's just like, well, okay, but I want to still paint, and I want to still, do my makeup, and I want to do this and do that. And it's just, it doesn't have to be so systematic, is what you're putting it to. You know what I mean? Like, you can do,
Exactly.
you can do
Yeah,
it.
and
Go ahead.
no, 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 I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. No, it doesn't bother me. Go ahead.
Yeah, the pandemic, is allowing space for us to quit, and also, all the social justice issues we're finally talking about, and like it being um, a year, we got to pick our president. People are actually questioning the existing structures, and that includes, like our personal lives.
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, it's really, like, and I remember we first talked, and I told you about what I went through the days before that, and you kind of like told me, like, it's Leo season, like it's
oh my god, yeah.
everything is shaken up. And oddly enough, like, when I actually remember what how I told you, like, I kind of overcame something today. Before
Yes.
that, I had spoken with my sister that I was gonna do it so I can have her support, because she's really big on therapeutic healing right now.
Yeah.
And she told me, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, me too, like, I've been feeling this under overwhelming pressure, or like anxiety. And I was like, my friend told me that it has something to do with Leo season. I'm not super
Mhm.
into zodiac signs, but she's like, oh wait, yeah, that makes sense. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's a thing. I don't know.
Yep.
um
Yep.
yeah, that's crazy. I mean, yeah,
You're not alone.
yeah,
A
it's
lot of my friends are feeling this, like, I almost want to say like manic, chaotic energy, or on the other side of the spectrum, like a deep pressure, Um, and what's beautiful about, I guess, planetary movements is that we experience them together, and people who are in tune with themselves and their bodies, you can reach out to each other and get it.
definitely, that's a big thing, is
Yeah.
like just having, I've been doing that more with, like, a lot of creatives right now. I've been reaching out to
Yeah.
people that paint, that make music, at their own level. Like, they're probably not at their peak or their best, but we're all still, like, chasing whatever we're chasing. And it's good to have that support system,
Hmm.
no matter
Hmm.
how big or small it is.
Yes.
And that kind of that connects back, the idea of support system and getting influence, from where we come from. You talked a little bit about being a fangirl and
Oh my
childhood
god.
music, so I
Yeah.
kind of wanted to dig into that. I seen that you post a lot about, different
One Direction.
boy bands. Boy
Yeah.
bands, I love.
That was a really good way to bring the tangent like all the way back around.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You
Yeah,
killed that. Um, yeah, growing up, let's see. So, I guess personality wise, my special interests are pop culture and like music. Just ever since I was little, I think watching so much Disney Channel, I really idolized like Hilary Duff. That's a Raven. I sorry, like Raven Simone. Um, I'm trying to think what other shows were super iconic then. But I just like I loved the Disney machine, and I dreamt of being a part of it. And thankfully, my mom saw right through it, and made me kind of focus on school and stuff. Which it sounds like she suppressed me, but really, she
she did
she
her
knew.
motherly duty. She did what she had
Yeah,
to do.
yeah, like no, honestly, looking back, the Disney machine is super dangerous. All those kids turned out super, um, fricked up, and they
Yeah,
need a lot of, and I'm very, very lucky that my mother didn't allow me to pursue the creative stuff when I was a child, because children are so vulnerable and they're taken advantage of, and now all this stuff is coming out. Anyway, sorry, I could go off on
no,
a
you're good. No, you're
million
good. Let it
tangents.
out. Let it out. It's big. You're connecting different aspects, and the idea of, like, it kind of like that. Like, again, it connects back to the whole, when you were younger. The idea of, like, your appearance, and she oddly enough, everything connects for me. So your idea of, like,
Yeah.
appearances was really big, because your mom noticed that with what you were watching, and the media that you were
Mhm.
consuming. Oddly
Yeah.
enough, now, a couple years later, you notice that, like, well, these people and these actors and actresses and they were being abused, like for their appearance and being used for whatever they can quote unquote offer. But at that moment, it's just kind of looks, and they were being, I think it's called grooming, if I'm not mistaken. They were
Yeah.
being
Yep.
groomed. So
Yep, terrifying. And if like I can look back and resent my mom for not letting me be a child star, or I can look back and be like, she was like protecting me,
yeah,
and I'm super grateful that, like, everyone has a different path and journey, and my mom making me be like a really academic kid, and have lots of extracurricular activities and stuff, like it felt like a distraction, but I grew up, and like now, as I'm like learning to parent myself, I can make those decisions that I wanted to make artistically that my mom didn't let me do. But like, I have no resentment towards that. I'm like, that was my path, that was my journey. I'm speaking in such vague terms.
no, you're good. That's awesome. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like I told you like earlier, I had that meeting with my mom and getting everything off my chest. It's really big. I'm glad you noticed that. A lot of people just go throughout their life and just loathing and dealing with this like sense of anger and oppression,
Yeah.
and they don't ever
Yeah.
let it go, and they just grow into be such like sour people.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, it sounds like, and I can tell by your like what you post on social media and how close you are with your mom. What was her favorite music growing up, or what would she listen to like in the household?
Such a good question, because that's what I grew up on. Okay. Um, she loves like Latin pop and Latin like singer songwriters. We listen to a lot of like Juanes, Shakira, and Ricardo Arjona. Actually, like she had.
Fire, fire.
Do you know all those artists?
Yes, they're
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah, Ricardo Arjona is her number one, right? And she had him on tapes, and she would have my little sister and I play the tapes and write down all the words, the lyrics, so she could like read them. And but I feel like that taught me a lot about lyrics, like transcribing it essentially.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so that was like a little, I don't know, school lesson in disguise, I guess. My mom is super poetic as well, and I think she passed that on to me through the music she listened to in the house. Shakira's first album, Her Era, was like she wrote all those songs. She was like a little rocker, and then Juanes, is he writes bops, and um,
I like that.
yeah. And then we had one Beatles album on vinyl. No idea what the name of it was, but it was only ballads. It was like Beatles ballads. So I also learned a lot of poetry through that, I guess.
That's awesome.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
how did she? And this is just like, and I don't mean to like shift it off of that, because it's awesome what parents can do musically for you, and the
Yeah.
influences that
Yeah.
they create. Because oddly enough, my dad, when he was growing up, he played the trumpet in his own like little like marching band in Peru.
Hmm.
And I always wanted to ask him growing up, but he never really told me until I was like 18 or 19, and I truly sat him down and was like, I love you. What did you want to do when you grew up? Like when you were
Mm.
little, what was your ultimate goal as to like what you want to be successful? And he's like, honestly, I was like, yeah, tell me. He was like, I wanted to be a singer. And I was like,
Mm.
whoa, like that's big, like I was like, well, why didn't you pursue it? He's like, I just kind of thought like I had he has really bad retention. Like he like forgets things easily.
Mhm.
So his idea was that as he gets older, he thought his memory would be like worse, so that he would forget lyrics. So he's like, I could never do it. And I was like, what? Like, I maybe it's his own way of coping with him not being able to chase that dream.
Mhm.
But yeah, oddly enough, I think that's why I have like, how we talked about that earlier about the ear. He
Yeah.
just surrounded me like with a bunch of different music. Like at 10 years old, I had The Massacre by 50 Cent, like fully explicit. Like he did not care. And then when I was in school, I kind of gravitated towards friends that were like, around hip hop. So my friend, one of the close friends in fifth grade, his name was Chris. He actually opened the world of like Wu-Tang Clan, Lupe Fiasco.
Mhm.
I just kind of went on a rabbit hole after that. Like my dad gave me access to like and I don't know if they'll like if I'll get in trouble for this, but like the idea of like downloadable music and like like
Mm.
being able to download music and stuff, and he's just like, just whatever you want, just do it, but just be careful with viruses. And I was like, what is that? And
Dude, totally. We had Napster and LimeWire, and I think I would spend hours at the computer just finding songs to download. And my sister would do it with me. And I remember having an iPod and thinking like, I have the best music on this iPod in the world. If anyone ever found this iPod, it would be worth thousands.
I like that. I
I
like
was
that
I was
idea.
so cocky about it.
No, that's good. Look at you now. You know what I mean? Like you
Hmm.
have, oddly enough, I found two artists from
Hmm.
just your Instagram and like your social media. So
Really?
yeah, well, one's
Ooh.
Noli. You know, like
Yes,
one's Noli.
yes.
He's your friend, and I was able to hear his single, and I was really surprised. Like when you were, yeah, I think it was you and your sister listening to it when it was first released or something like that, and you
Yeah.
guys really were vibing out to it. And I was like, that's sick. And then the other one, it's a boy band. I forgot what their name
Pretty
is.
much.
Yes, I think yeah,
Period.
yeah. Yeah, so I thought they
um,
were pretty dope.
I love how open-minded you are because those are very poppy boys, you know?
Of course, but they're the ones that make the bops.
I agree that they like immediately capture your attention with their songs, I think.
Yeah,
Like you hear it and you're like, this is freaking a
they
hit.
have they have depth. That's the big thing with me is that they have layers to the music. It's not just a simple cut dry like like
Hmm.
progressive beat with just simple lyrics. Like no, like they have different tone inflections, different ways of actually implicating color into their
Hmm.
music. It's big. Um,
Hmm.
I can go on
Man,
and on. You know.
oh no, for real. You said color, and I was like, the way that a lot of artists, I feel like more conversation around like synesthesia and also just like sorry, not incorporating, like associating colors and shapes and feelings and sounds and smells to like music is a really cool conversation that Gen Z is kind of, bringing up. Oh my God, we could talk about so many things.
Let's do it. I'm ready. So the big thing for me is that like
Yeah, what's up?
when anyone, I feel like when anyone, any type of art, but mainly for
Mhm.
me it's music, because music kind of speaks to me on different levels, and I hate saying that because it sounds so corny, but
Mhm.
like I don't like if someone says something a certain way in a song,
Mhm.
it's structured. No matter what anyone says, oh, I freestyled this, I did this, and they make it seem so free form, it's
Mhm.
also still structured. Regardless
Mhm.
if they notice it consciously or subconsciously, it's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool, especially with your music. Like I remember when you started releasing your own your own sound, and I don't know. I
Like
was so
demos
happy for
and
you.
yeah.
I was so happy for you.
Thank you. Actually, you say the structure thing, and I think about like the way I write is poems first,
Oof,
and that's because even with just words, you could have like the structure.
exactly.
What's the word? Like the meter, you know?
Yeah, just even inspiration and like tempo. When you start writing
Yeah.
stanzas, you start writing certain types of um, poets and just verses or lines, that it goes a long way as to like, well, that doesn't sound very fluid. How can I adjust it? Can I take out a word? Can I move it here? Like
Yes.
little by little, it'll start coming together. So
No, seriously, if it doesn't sound good as a poem or spoken, I'm like, I don't. How could I sing this?
exactly.
Um, and I did have I have a history in spoken word, and I think the way my mom raised me, poetry came first, and I always consider myself a writer first, as much as I love singing. I think writing is my forte and my yeah.
I believe that. Yeah, no, I see it. Connecting back to the whole like idea of like music and your mom.
Hmm.
How does she feel about you working in the industry?
Ooh. Uh, Okay, actually, this can kind of tie back to the conversation we had about you and your mother and
Yeah,
then the relationship I have with my mother.
yeah.
Are you an immigrant?
I am not. I was born here, but she's an immigrant.
She's an immigrant. Okay,
Yes,
my
ma'am.
mother and I were born in Colombia, but I moved here when I was 2, so um, I'm pretty much, I'm raised here.
Mhm.
But both our parents likely struggled a lot to get us to where we are now, and they weren't able to pursue their artistic dreams, and and that's just like the reality of their generation versus millennials, the way that we get to
Pursue our
navigate the world.
passions.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of, I think for many years people tried to shame millennials and Gen Z for being so like dreamy and like actually like doing what they want, but it's because our parents didn't get what they wanted. They had to and we're kind of just like you know, making up for that, and also they live through us. Anyway, my mother loves writing, and she wanted to write books and stuff, and I don't think it's too late for her to ever start. But she thought I was gonna be a novelist. She thought I was gonna be maybe professional spoken word, and I'm like, I don't know why you ever thought I was strong enough for that, but
I mean, it's just
she,
like you said earlier about her. Like, it still could happen for you too. I mean, you're technically
nah.
doing it just like in a different medium. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the thing is though, I don't really like spoken word. It was
Oh, then
just
yeah,
it
no.
was just a
Do
medium that
your
I
thing. Do
did.
your thing. Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
I love okay. Let's take it back. When I was 4, I was
Okay.
already writing songs. I didn't know how to play any instruments yet, but I remember taking computer paper and writing a poem and then asking my mom and dad to sit on the bed, and like I would sing it to them just a cappella. And I feel like I still remember some of those songs. Anyway, I just have been writing songs for no one, and for my parents and for myself, you know, since I was a wee child. And um, music has always been the medium that either I process, I express, you know, I consume so much of it. And I think I was telling you, like, it's silly to think that just because we don't have like official titles in the industry, that we're not professionals. You know, you and I have grown up listening to so much music, hours and hours of music, probably more than 10,000 hours. And so why would we let anyone tell us we don't know what we're doing? We don't know what we like. You and I are already professionals in the music that
Yeah, that
we,
was that when
or
you told me
experts,
that. Yeah,
experts.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. When you told me that, I was so oddly enough, even though like you might feel like you're not in a position to have such, you know, notoriety or whatever, but I was so proud of you to like
Mm-hmm.
of myself when you told me that. I was like, oh, that means so much to me. Like, I didn't express it there and then because I was still processing it, but
Mm-hmm.
if I like how you're explaining it, and oddly enough, the 10,000 hours that you talked about was talked about in a first episode with a guest. His name was
Yeah.
Jeff Gross. He actually said, like, you know, 10,000 hour mark is technically what makes you an expert in anything.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so definitely, like, I listen to music like when I'm in my car, when I'm at work
Mm-hmm.
on my break, when I am like even before you came into the call. I was listening to music trying to calm myself down and unwind because I know you were
Mm-hmm.
nervous and I was still nervous too, and I was like, well, hopefully this all goes well, and she's like, okay, you know, like, so music is like, it's honestly, it's very therapeutic for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of, don't get me wrong, I feel like the music review page that I had wasn't as big as I wished it was, but there's still
Mm-hmm.
time. But ultimately I found something else that I'm also stronger in, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like would get more recognition that can later on help my music
Yeah.
review thing. You know what I mean? So
Also, every endeavor that you like go on, everything that you pick up, everything you try is going to, like, it's only enriching you, and like the way that you're gonna whatever your final product is, if that makes sense. I'm
yeah,
sorry, I'm like
no,
trying
no,
to
no,
find the
you're
word.
good. You're
Like
good. Yeah,
whatever it is that you end up doing that, like, not only you're passionate about, but also like is your income, you know,
yeah,
and like supports you and makes you happy, because that's the ideal
yeah. Your
outcome, you
business,
know. Yeah, your
whatever it
business.
is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, I just have such like
No, you're good.
a
You're good.
disdain for like business and money talk. But
I know.
anyway, um, yeah, no, the blog that you had, I feel like that was necessary, a stepping stone, and you learned so much from that. And now
Oof.
you're gonna learn so much from this. Like, never ever ever regret something that, you know, didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, because, you know, at the end of the day, it was part of your journey.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I agree 1,000%, because
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I love the creative aspect. I love talking about music. I love talking about podcasting, media, anything like that. But at the same
Yeah.
time, you know, I still delve in like sales and retail experience and like communication skills, and a lot of people that have found success in one business have failed multiple times prior to even reaching their point of peak of success. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep. Yep.
so I believe that's really, really big. I think that also comes like with just artists in general. They have to, like, the true artists that have a longevity in the music industry have had like so many albums before they're actually ever offered a record deal or offered anything. You know, they have to be able to like come in with some sort of negotiation. If not, they're gonna be taken advantage of.
Yeah, and like I think the conversation's shifting to like why do we even consider labels like the pinnacle? Like why is that the point where we're successful? So many independent artists, are thriving. So, oh my God.
Yeah, like I've no the thing, and it's big, and oddly enough, like you said, it connects back to the idea of Gen Z. Like all of
Mhm.
these kids that they're like they just want to make music, regardless if they get paid for it, regardless if there's gonna be an offer for like $1 million. They kind of just like again therapeutic. They're just kind of putting their thoughts to paper and yelling it out, shouting it out, singing, crying
And that
about
results in
like
really fun music.
yes. Oh my
I,
God,
the way you're describing this right now, have you heard of Love Leo?
I've heard of him. I think I heard of him. It is he has like one song that's like a whistling song, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
You should break up with your boyfriend. Yeah.
yes, I heard about him because I watched the show on Genius about
Hmm.
Alicia. I think it was Alicia Keys.
Yeah, yeah.
She rated like what she wants to co-sign or whatever. I kind of don't like that aspect, because you're kind of you're raising someone's hopes to by lowering others, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
I don't like that aspect. But I kind of more so liked being tapped into new different music and different artists. But he popped
Yeah.
up and I was like, that's a really catchy song.
Yeah. Yeah. I love him as an artist. He is everything that I wish for Gen Z's. Like, I don't know. Not idols, because I really don't like the idea of idols. Like I had idols as a kid, but if we're gonna have celebrity, like I want people to have positive influences and role models and stuff like that. And to me, he is so. Well, first of all, we have to acknowledge he's John C. Riley's son.
Oh,
uh,
really?
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so that idea of creativity is there.
It's there, and I think his dad probably really really nurtured that part of him, and so shout out to his dad and his mom. I don't know anything about his mom, but this kid, I think he's close to our age. He makes I think he produces all his own music. He every song on his EP that just came out like is so different, so fun. He has like a Russian DJ song. He has
Interesting.
like a punk song. He has that
Okay.
whistle song. He has like a groovy like disco song.
So he's
And
tapping into
I
everything.
yeah, and it doesn't sound like disingenuous. It's like he likes every genre that he's playing with. And he, I don't know.
I feel like he's just pursuing everything creative that's being thrown at him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Billie Eilish similarly does that. Every song on her album is like a completely different genre, and like, I like it's just so realistic. Like we listen to so many things. Why do we have to make one genre to like? I guess it's easier to consume, right? If you have like one specific brand to sell,
Your
or like
expectation to your audience is way easier to
sure,
try to sell.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's what the industry wants, unfortunately.
and moving away from that, like I'm not a huge fan of writing sessions and people writing with each other. I'm not really a big fan of calculated hits and stuff like that. And I think pop music, as the whole world shifts from like the old American dream to the new American dream, right?
Yeah.
Like I think pop music is shifting too. Like I don't think any. I look at Taylor Swift's latest album. It's alternative. She like did a complete. Is it 180?
Yeah, exactly.
um, yeah, like everyone's kind of moving away from this flex culture, this like extravagance, like I don't know, just annoying, like surface level, shallow thing. And I obviously sound super bitter about it, but I'm just really excited about the artists that we're welcoming in who are so sincere and so honest. Like I'm a huge fan of Phoebe Bridgers. I'm a huge fan of Love Leo. I'm trying to think like Rena. I don't know. People are having so much honest fun, and that is so much more interesting to me than anything that's backed by like a huge label or
I
whatever.
agree. Yeah, I mean that's big because I'm glad that you're noticing the trend with new music being released. Oddly
Mm-hmm.
enough, I feel like at one point pop was kind of hip hop. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like hip hop.
no, totally.
You know what I mean? So like the whole aspect of like, and no disrespect to these artists, those that are deceased that I'm gonna name, I respect their music. I really love them. But like Juice World,
Yeah.
like all these
Oh
different
yeah.
people, they're really dark. It's really alternative. It's a lot of like sad music, but it's
Yeah.
like it's hard at the same time with like 808s and like just you're bringing in these emotions that normally rappers don't really talk about,
Yeah.
but it's being played on the radio, like it's
I think people labeled it like emo, like trap
yeah,
rap, or
exactly, that's what it
yeah.
was, emo trap. So like that's really big. And like with like hip hop acts and I with
It was so fascinating to see like old pop punk acts like Fall Out Boy and like Panic at the Disco, teaming up with like our generation of like emo artists, which
definitely.
are rap artists.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like what that kind of made me sad that you said like old like Fall Out Boy and like yeah, I was like, oh, they're still my favorite. Like I still remember all their music and like I'm
Hmm.
really growing up and I don't like the idea, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of like just music and experimentals and trends and stuff going on like that, it's up to you if you're ready for it.
Ooh.
Did you want to cover your relationship with Injury Reserve?
Oh yeah. Um well,
Or you can go earlier than that. You can just
yeah,
talk about
thank
where it all came from.
you totally read my mind. I'm like, when you bring up injury reserve, I could go so far back into like basically when I was in high school, I got really rebellious. I
Okay.
started rejecting all the like, bubblegum stuff that I really liked growing up. Sorry, I like in my childhood. And in my teens, I guess I was um what's the word? I don't know. Pretty much lost, and I was seeking acceptance from in the wrong places and validation and stuff like that. As a small brown girl in South Florida, um, I
I feel like that's a scary place to be. If I'm being complete. And
yeah,
if it's not Los Angeles, it's South Florida. You know what I mean?
yeah. Like I'm really lucky that my like family friends and like school friends circle was very brown woman, like Latinas. Everyone had immigrated from like South America, but when I got to high school, I don't know, the circle expanded and I was introduced to a lot of like I guess what happened was my big sister listened to a lot of rock music. I would say white boy music, white bands. Um,
Okay.
and she influenced me a lot. She's 6 years older than me, and I wanted to be as cool as her. She went to a lot of rock shows. She loved Warped Tour, and so my first concert was Hillary Duff, and then my second concert was Taste of Chaos.
Oh Jesus,
Um,
that
you
that
know,
that leap! I love it. I
that
love it.
leap, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I went to a lot of Warped Tours, and then we had this venue. Okay, huge shout out to this venue in South Florida. It was called Talent Farm. It was owned by my like sister's friend's dad. It was a venue for all ages, and so there was no drinking. And then a lot of the kids there were straight edge, and they just had bands, like honestly, huge bands loved coming there.
Mm.
But the genre was like punk, hardcore.
That's so awesome, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
it's called the South Florida hardcore scene.
okay.
Yeah. So okay, so thinking about like, being a teenager in South Florida, there's nothing to do. You want to do something on the weekends. What is everybody doing? Everyone's going to shows, right? So instead of going to the movies, I was just every weekend, Fridays and Saturdays, I would go see whatever band was playing at the talent farm. Sometimes I wouldn't know them, sometimes I would. And to be honest, I also played into like the poser, role. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to be accepted, and so like sometimes I would pretend to like bands that I didn't like, to be liked by white men or white boys,
Yeah.
that's something I can look back on and laugh. But it also shaped my music taste. I love hardcore and punk, and I love emo music. Oh my god! And so okay, so that was kind of like everything to me in high school. And then when I had to move to California, the music scene here is so different. People in the West Coast, I guess, kind of there's
More.
more. It's more rap influenced, right?
Yeah. It's also laid back for some reason.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they'll talk about like killing someone, but in like a lo-fi beat, and it's just like, bro, like how that's probably why a lot of people around here are just so like they're not emotional. They just they don't care. They have that more of like, yeah, bro, I'm just gonna, chill, lay back. It's a Sunday. I'm kicking,
Yeah,
like.
well, it depends, right? Like I moved to Bakersfield first when I came to California, and over here, it's a very stoner vibe. People, I'm trying to think, what did people listen to? Okay, I had never ever listened to Chance the Rapper until I
Okay.
moved to California, and that was a huge gateway to like the type of hip hop that I listen to. Um, what would I call him? I think he's kind of like alternative, like
Yeah, definitely.
pop, right? Yeah, and so honestly, I had to assimilate. I had to adapt to when I moved here. I had to kind of release all the influences that I liked, back in Florida, just to kind of survive. Which sounds super dramatic, but it's like I moved over here by myself. I was living with my aunt and uncle, and I wanted friends, and so I had to, you know, develop interests that other people had. Sadly,
No,
I
no,
could have I
it's
could have found
it's.
people that I just liked the same stuff that I liked, but I had trouble doing that. It was my school was like 400 people.
Oh, geez. So it was.
Yeah,
It doesn't. I mean, that seems kind of small, right? It's a little bit. It's more
yeah.
close knit. Everyone kind of just falls in the same category of everything, right?
Period. And then I was like, I moved here as a senior, and so everybody already had their friend groups, and I only had 1 year to make friends, and And then I went to college, and in college, I purposely picked UCLA. It was between Berkeley and UCLA, and I sometimes wonder what I would have been like if I had picked Berkeley, but um, I literally only picked UCLA because LA, the entertainment industry,
I
and
knew
and
it.
the
I was gonna say like there's why it's I feel like you wanted to just get a little taste of like how it is south because
mhm, mhm,
you're already in the north. You
mhm.
kind of assume it's gonna be the same. That it might just be more like less creative, more like structured and more
Mm,
organized and more math. Everyone's more calculated there. In LA, you're kind
yeah.
of like you can have sushi one night and then a burrito the next, and you're like, fuck yeah, that's what I want.
Yes, that, and also like the variety of music scenes in LA. I also want to say I picked LA because of the weather. Like I knew that if I went to school in Berkeley, I would probably be like depressed
Oh,
80% of the
oh,
year,
yeah.
I'm highly affected by weather. That's just the thing about,
I
seasonal
agree. Me too.
depression.
Me too.
But yeah, yeah, thanks for relating. And yeah, so I picked LA because I knew that when I wasn't doing schoolwork, I would be at concerts, DJ sets, like any venue that I could get into, I would be there. And okay, what sucks is technically I'm fuck, I really hate this. I'm sorry, Chris. I really hate this word, but groupies, right? Like I'm always labeled a groupie, and I'm like, I think that's a really freaking sexist thing to say. I'm a fan,
Definitely.
right?
You're not even that. You're a supporter. You're
I'm a
paying
supporter,
to
yeah.
because you can be a fan, but you don't support them because you're not paying for stuff. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
very like I think that's a big thing, and especially in just the music industry and just in life in general. People don't truly
yeah.
define what terms mean to someone,
Uh-huh.
and they just categorize them before they truly define what it is.
Yeah.
So like when you said you were adapting and you had to assimilate, you technically didn't assimilate because your values were still upheld, just in a
Hmm.
different aspect. You kind of just adapted because assimilation is like being forced to change your previous ways to just feel
Yeah.
good, So you adapted and you did really good. And the same thing now is just like with people that are titled groupies. That's just
Hmm.
because they're that person that says it is insecure about where they're at, for
Hmm.
the most part, and they just kind of want to push a title onto someone because they want to
It's
force the
also,
power.
yeah, it's internalized misogyny as well. It's like,
Yes.
I want to add, like, men can be groupies too.
Of course.
And
Definitely.
yeah, one, I would like to like erase the term completely because it almost implies that these are people you're allowed to take advantage of, right? Which, and that's a huge conversation happening right now with, Burger Records. And honestly, a lot of music scenes could be completely exposed for like people having predatory behavior. And it's just so normalized in the music scene. It's crazy. And as a teen fan of a girl, I can like, you know
Yeah, you have
attest
the
to that.
don't
Yeah,
again.
I have
Don't you don't
receipts,
have
but
to.
I
No, you're good. The thing is like
yeah,
you don't. I don't want you to have to feel like you have to validate your position because you're
yeah,
like we said, 10,000 hours. We have that. You
yeah,
know what I mean? We have the experience and
absolutely.
the expertise. So like you're good. No, I understand that people. You unfortunately you've had experiences in the industry where you kind of been um doubtful of your position because they make you feel like, or whoever they is, you know, I'm not gonna really define it. They
Absolutely.
make you feel like you don't bring any value. You don't know what you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about. I know
Mm-hmm.
because I've been doing this for years. I'm the man. All this and this and this, and it's just like, well, that's kind of one sided, and it sucks. For in my opinion, the way I'd handle it, it'd be like, well, that sucks for you because you're limited
Mm-hmm.
to whatever you're gonna be shown, and that's cool. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
do it to yourself. More so, like, don't try to treat me that way, and then I'm gonna just adjust wherever I need to be where people truly value what I have to offer. You know?
Yep, and that's the way you describe that other person, you know, whoever that could be.
Yeah.
It's that's gaslighting, right? At the end of the day, like you're convincing a person that like they're not as valuable as they are, and or like making them question their reality. And I think that happens a lot in the music industry, to vulnerable young women. You know, I know now how like creative and smart I am. But I let it be undervalued. I let people make me feel small, and that's on them, right? That's abusive of them. But it's also it's on me. I wasn't emotionally strong or working on myself yet, and so I was just like one. I was vulnerable, and I was putting myself in vulnerable positions,
I
and
mean,
people were taking advantage of that.
when did
So
you really realize that? I remember that was a big thing we talked about. Like, when did you realize that it was just like that's like, you know, you realize. I remember you said like a big jump was like moving from LA back to Bakersfield. Like, when did you realize that you had to do that? Like, that was just the thing to do.
that I had to what, heal.
Yeah, just heal, move, do what you had to do.
Mm.
You know?
Well, it's not linear. I feel like it's a very much like two steps forward, one step back kind of process. I think that's the saying. Because let's see. Okay. When I moved to Bakersfield, okay, so I was deep in the hardcore scene, and then I moved to Bakersfield, and one, I was like trying to like find music here, but at the same time I needed something to like um comfort me, and that's when I really got into One Direction and boy bands, and realizing like, oh, this is so wholesome, and this is it like literally saved my life.
Yeah.
So I would say like One Direction was a very huge healing period for me, in terms of like having something safe, when I was having such a difficult time. Like my dad had passed, and so when I say One Direction saved my life, I literally mean like they kept me, you know, they uplifted me when I was like
They kept you
experiencing
sane. You just
loss.
leveled.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah. And like he was my dad was the like only man in my life. Like my whole family's girls. And so I think that's why I'm so attracted to like um boy bands, and also trying to understand men. Like it's a huge passion of mine, which is crazy, right? Because I'm a feminist, but I'm so obsessed with understanding like how the
The
patriarchy hurts and shapes men.
Yeah, like the male
Yeah,
nature, just about how like
exactly.
because I oddly enough I like that too, because
Hmm.
even though I can quote unquote, I guess I'm considered a man, and you recently posted about simps and how
Hmm.
men and like toxic men, and I actually talked about that earlier, is like men carry such toxicity behind them
Yeah,
because of the insecurities and their inability to communicate what they're truly feeling. And
yeah.
it sucks because in the beginning, like, I really felt bad about it when I was like 18, dealing with my anxiety, and people would be like, not that I wasn't valued, more so of like they just undervalued because of my age. They're like, oh, he
Mm.
doesn't know much. But it's just like, I have older parents that have experienced life. They teach me different ways, and just because you're older does not mean, unfortunately, that you carry the same amount of wisdom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I was kind
It
of showing that like you kind of had to be the quote unquote man, but it's at the same time, it's like, who defines that? You know?
yeah, and like you said, the age thing, the wisdom difference, like I think it comes down to how much time you put into your healing as well, because that's when you process your whole life. Like you can live a long life and never think about it, but you could also like, you know, if you take long spaces of time, that's why people meditate, right? You're thinking about the experiences that you've had and like what they mean for you and the rest of your life. And yeah, I think that's why processing and therapy is so important. Like normalize therapy.
Yes, I
That's
agree.
where the wisdom comes in, you know?
Yeah, definitely being able to self
Reflect.
realize, yeah, and reflect
Yeah.
who you are, and meditate on that, and just being able. That's what, like, you know, oddly enough, that's what Nipsey Hussle brings up too, is like just being able to like know what your true value is and just
Uh-huh.
stick with it. Don't let it be
Mhm.
adjusted, only let it be improved, you know?
Okay, yeah, that conversation is so important because as you know, all those periods where I tried to assimilate or adapt or whatever, right? Like I was changing my personality to make friends because that's human nature. You want to be connected or have a community. But I think I lost my values and my morals and my ethics. Like for a few um, years, I was so lost that I just kind of, that whole saying, like if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Like I was literally just following any crowd that um, even pretended to accept me. And so coming back to your values really, really is it like roots you, it like grounds you for real. Because you're like, I will not accept this from this, and I will accept this from this, and this is what I like.
Yeah.
That's what values do. They really um, set set up like who you are as a person.
I mean, oddly enough, like as you talk about it, and I kind of think all like big picture and everything like that. Like I think it was I don't know if I remember you telling me. I'm kind of just thinking off the top of my head, but you graduated from UCLA and then
Yeah.
you lived in LA for a couple years and then you
Mhm.
moved back to Bakersfield. It's like just if you think about it geographically, like LA is just so congested, so filled with people that are like not, and anyone living in Los Angeles, this isn't, don't be offended, but most people in
Yeah.
LA are fake.
Yeah.
They're holding up they're like leasing stuff, they're renting it, but they're putting it on social media like they own all this and they have ownership
Mhm.
as to all the success they've been having, but in reality it's
Mhm.
rented success, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's really big that you say that because you left a place that was congested to work on yourself, like Bakersfield,
Mhm.
where people would probably, they kind of have jokes about Bakersfield, but ultimately Bakersfield is like an open plain field, not
Mhm.
playing, but
Mhm.
like, the plain is just
Yeah.
flat surfacing of like searching, like you're just trying to find the diamond in the rough. You're trying to find yourself and who you truly are and enjoying your own company instead of having to
Wow.
find that in other people.
That is so poetic because Bakersfield is literally sprawled out, and there are so many shit parts to it, but there are so many little gems here and there. And that is what I was trying to do within myself, right? Like, erase all the shit parts that I had like downloaded, and what what do I care about? Um, who am I? The
Yeah,
most important question ever.
definitely.
Who am
Yeah.
I? But yeah,
So with the
yeah, Bakersfield
idea,
is. Mhm.
sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
No, Bakersfield is a very healing and loving place for me personally. I know it's not for everyone, but yeah,
That's dope. I love that because no one would really think that way towards Bakersfield, unfortunately.
yeah, and
Um,
I understand.
yeah, with the idea of like healing and sometimes like we have to, like you said, you have to delete or get rid of all the shit and like lose it, like just get rid of it. Is
Mhm.
there any bit like has there been any big loss that's ever like truly like made you pivot like really hard in life? You know what I mean?
Loss, yeah. Um, hmm. A few. Obviously, like the loss of my father
Uh-huh.
um, was a huge pivot, and then I guess the loss of self in the industry. I would say I hit rock bottom, and then recently, I lost a friend, and I hadn't experienced a loss of a friend yet. And I'm 25, so that's kind of nuts. But um, you know, they're huge. They're huge. They're moments
Inspiration.
that really, well, they ground you. These moments, like they snap you back into your body, into the present, and they make you question everything. And like it's super heightened for me right now because we're all the pandemic and um, all the protests have us questioning everything. Like the thing you said about LA being super materialistic. I mean, those are the like capitalism hurts us, right?
Yeah.
Um, um, I'm just in a period of time where I'm thinking so hard about so many things. Um I okay, wait, I kind of want to go back to like um how I found injury reserve because it does have to do with where I'm at right now.
That's perfect. That's actually so. Oddly enough, and I'll keep this in there as well.
Yeah.
The reason why I framed it that way is because I knew you'd probably cover the loss that you just currently had. So I wanted
Yeah.
to, ease my way into it. But yeah, definitely. Let's go ahead and cover it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Um, thanks. So if anyone has ever listened to Injury Reserve, I don't know. They are um quote unquote like a rap collective, right? I don't think they're. They're like a just a group, power group. It a trio. Um, but
They're
Grog,
amazing. I
yeah.
actually, oddly enough, I reviewed two of their albums, and
Mhm.
they have such experimental content within their
Yes.
music. It's not even I personally could not categorize it in hip hop. I had to just for the sake
Mhm.
of like the review, but I did
Yeah.
not feel comfortable doing that at all. They have such
Uh-huh.
different inflections and different, like, nothing is technically the same, but they always had a theme, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, okay. I think what is so powerful about Injury Reserve is we care about Nate, we care about Parker, we care about Grugs, right? Like we believe them in their art, and they are not afraid to pivot their art when they don't feel close to what they were making anymore, right? Um, And so, okay, injury reserve. Let's see. I was on YouTube one day. I was clicking around on recommended videos and I came across Remo Drive. And like, I literally only know one Remo Drive song, but in the comment section, someone had commented, "This is like the white injury reserve." And I liked the song a lot. So I was like, what the heck could like a POC Remo Drive be?
Yeah.
That sounds so interesting. And I like, don't know why anyone made that connection, but it forced me to like look up injury reserve. I was like, who the heck is this? I immediately consumed all their music videos, and then I think on Spotify they have that feature where like shows near you, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, definitely. I used
um,
to use that a lot.
yeah, I don't have Spotify anymore, but at the time, it told me that they had a show coming up in LA like 2 weeks from the day I discovered them, and so I was like, oh, I'm learning every song.
I
um,
like that. You're just like me, dude. Oddly enough, like, if I'm gonna go to a concert, I'm not gonna be that guy just standing around. I'm gonna
mhm.
be, even if I'm just mouthing it to myself, like, I know what he's saying word for word.
Yep. Okay, and so I go to the show. I forget what the venue was called, but I kid you not, it was like a crowd of like 90% dudes, 98% dudes, you know? But what was cool is there were men of color because my scene in Florida was pretty white.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm I've been at UCLA for maybe 3 4 years at that point, and I've been going to so many concerts. They're mostly hip hop R&B shows, right? And people dance at them, but you people also just stand and vibe, like people sway back and forth, whatever. Or you sit at concerts, like depending on the venue. And that shit is super boring to me because I'm used to DIY spaces. And for some reason, in LA, I never ever dove into the DIY spaces. But then I found Injury Reserve, and the show just immediately reminded me so much of the types of shows that I had seen growing up in Florida. Like people were moshing to Injury Reserve, and that is my favorite like concert thing
Yeah, you
is
kind of,
moshing and stage diving.
just so I don't lose the thought, you kind of found a home outside of
Mm,
Florida in the music of
mm-hmm.
Injury Reserve, so you kind of connected with it, you know?
Thank you for making that connection. I have not verbalized it that way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that is why injury reserve is so important to me. They kind of mash up, the love that I developed for hip hop, but also like they are so punk. They're punk to me,
Yes. Yes, I couldn't agree more.
right?
Just
Like
yeah,
their
just
lyrical content.
the
Mm-hmm.
instrumentals too. It's just so grunge. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're just trying to punch you in the face, but also tell you something that's serious.
Yeah, and they also don't want you to like them, like
Oh
they
yeah.
don't care if you like them. They don't want to be likable. They don't want to be easy to consume. They're they want to, I don't know, they're just angry and embrace it, and I love it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was really lucky that at that show, because it was such a small venue at the time, like they I think they only had I think they had just dropped Floss. I happened to know one of their photographers, Jake Osman, and so I said hi to Jake at the show, and then Jake introduced me to them. and I didn't really talk to them much, but that first introduction is, sorry, I'm drinking LaCroix and I'm burping as I talk.
Oh, you're good. No
um
worries. That's honestly authentic. I was drinking water when you were talking a little bit. I was like, oh crap, I was like gonna burp, and I was like, you know what? What do I do?
yeah, I'm like, if I'm just honest, then it's okay if I burp.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go for it.
But yeah, yeah, I developed I forget how, I think on Snapchat, like I started going to more injury reserve shows because they were performing a lot in LA, and I just became like familiar with them because I was a constant face in the crowd. And honestly, I think it's because I was one of the few women at all the shows, right? And
Okay.
and I dive into the mosh pit. I like to be in the center of it. Men don't punch me, right? Because I'm a little girl, but I get to be pushed around and I get to push other people around, and it's so much fun to me. And so, when someone looks from, I don't know, I definitely think I stood out as like, I forget that I'm perceived as, this tiny brown woman.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. I
honestly,
understand.
inside, I feel like very, very strong and big and
That's good.
powerful,
No, no,
you know?
that's a big thing. No, for so any girl or woman of color, or just women in general, like that's a really big. That's honestly, that's why I have you on here, is because you have such empowerment, and you talk about your femininity, and
Mm-hmm.
you talk about it on social media. You create content for it. You moderate what you create, but you ultimately set your own standard for who you are, and it's
Mm-hmm.
visible through the content that you've made. Um,
Thank you.
so no, yeah, definitely. That's ultimately, if for whatever reason, out of the entire conversation, that people don't want to listen to, this aspect is super important. So what I just said, like, make sure that at least you take a nugget of it, and
Mhm.
so that way. But yeah, continue. Go ahead. Yeah, that you were
Thank
standing, you
you.
were like sticking out and doing your thing.
Yeah, I have a feeling that that's like why I was able to develop any familiarity with them. But at the time Snapchat was popular, I think I was just Snapchatting with them and sending them videos of their shows, and like they would post some of the videos that I took. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I just became a regular, and sometimes artists become friends with their fans, and then I'm trying to think. How did it get strong? I think I like um there was a few there was like a year where I like didn't talk to them much because they weren't really coming to LA like shows.
Hmm.
And then I had gotten involved in the music industry, and the artist that I worked for really liked Injury Reserve, and so I reconnected with them because they started opening for him. They opened for him a couple shows at Glitter Pop. They featured on one of his songs, and like it
They
was
were
just so
connected.
cool. Yeah, they were connected. It was really, really cool to like, one, I was working in the industry, and my friends who were already like, they're musicians, no matter what. They were like finding some um, mainstream success,
Yeah.
and it's funny because I feel like they reject it too. Like they want the mainstream
Oh
success, but
no,
also
yeah, no. I felt that through
like,
their music. They were. I feel like, um, they have a. Do they have three albums? They have three albums, right? Or three projects,
no,
or
they might
two.
have more. They have like Live at the Dentist Office, Floss, te- uh, self-titled 10 Tenths, I think. Was it called 10 Tenths or North Pole or something?
I
That
th-
one. I think they have four.
yeah, I think around 2, 3 is, or the second or third album is when they started like noticing that they're getting big, and they kind of, I
Uh-huh.
could feel it through their music that they were kind of rejecting it. They
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of,
this anxiety
yeah, they
about
kind
it.
of distanced themselves, oddly enough. And you can, again, I hate saying it, but I kind of have an ear, so I can feel what people are
Mm-hmm.
feeling when they create something. And if you even feel like something's missing, it's because they feel distant and they don't want to put it in. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I felt that a lot, and I think on the fourth one it kind of came back around, but at the same time, after that they kind of, not on a hiatus. They kind of did their own creative routine, and just took some time away from the general
Yeah.
eye, and then just gave themselves some space.
Yeah, and like in the last year or so, they've been dropping like singles here and there, and they're very, very, very experimental. And that's either, the fan base is either gonna go with whatever they do, or they're gonna like, not understand and drop off. But that's like fine. I don't think they care about that at all. Again, I don't want to keep speaking for Injury Reserve, but they became a very important band to me, and it was really crazy that they were also like my friends. And their assistant, I'm really, really good friends with. I've done a road trip across the country with him, and
Amazing.
then their friend, producer, like part of their team. He's produced on some of their songs. Malik XYZ. He is someone I'm working with musically right now, and it's so weird to think that like honestly, Grog's passing last month brought us back together, like, and had me having conversations with, um, you know, people that I had lost contact with and
Yeah,
connection with. And
definitely.
and honestly, I had lost myself a bit. I was doing a lot of inner child work. I don't know if you noticed, like my content in the last year or so was really bright, colorful, kind of playful.
It's
Um,
oddly enough. So okay, so
yeah, no, go
before I
ahead.
forget again, I hate forgetting thoughts. So the loss of someone kind of rekindled your uh what you had to get rid of to adapt to your new setting. So by that I mean you basically are bringing back how you were when you were younger with like
Mm,
music wise, and then you
yeah.
lost it in Florida, came back a little bit, and oddly enough, I'm kind of picking up all these connections because they were your home from Florida, and then the loss of someone that's so important from that group kind of rekindled your true nature of childhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
So when you do inner child work, you like, I don't know, I went deep far back, like almost like elementary school. And I remember I had a therapy session like a few months ago, and I was meeting a new therapist, and so she asked me to talk about myself. And the session was an hour. I ended up talking for 2 hours. She just let me have a double session, and she said for an hour and a half I talked about just elementary school, and then the rest of the half hour I talked about the rest of my life. So that's like just to emphasize how much I was processing the last year in terms of literal childhood. And then you think about when I was a teenager and I got into like more rock acts. Um, I think that's the period that I'm working through now. I'm kind of coming back to that. And so the music that I'm making is also just because I'm working through so much. Um, and music also kind of goes hand in hand with how I work through stuff. The music that I'm making now, honestly, is so completely different from the one single that I've dropped, right? I've dropped demos that sound like, I don't know, like coming of age indie, folk tracks. And then I've dropped I Don't Mind, which is like a pop lullaby, like super polished.
yeah.
Um,
When you released that, I kind of I not expected. I had a feeling it
mhm.
was gonna be bright, but then the one that you showed me recently, oof.
Oof,
Like it just I don't want to talk about it. I can't wait
you
until it comes
can.
out. No, it's so good.
Okay,
It's so like
okay.
I remember when I told you that it brings Billie Eilish vibes and you were so happy. I was like, oh,
Hmm.
hit it on the nail. I hit the nail on the head. Like
Yeah.
it's so good. I keep listening to it. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I'll be
Thank
showering and then I
you.
have it on. Like yeah, it's really good.
That's so cool because I think that's one thing that scares me a little bit about music. I hate that I think about it, but like when I make a song, I love it. But if it's too anxious, is it replayable? Do people want to hear it often? But I think you got to have music for every emotion, every scenario. And so I think currently I'm making kind of anxious music, but I think a lot of us are super anxious right now, and so
It
maybe it'll
fits.
resonate.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Covered a lot there. That I feel like I feel good. I don't know. Um, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about like since you're talking about like anxious and kind of
Yeah.
trying to step away from like anything that causes you to feel stressed or anything like that.
Mm,
Can we cover a little bit how you deal with like deleting your digital footprint?
totally. Um, is that your doggy?
Yeah, it keeps bark. I'm sorry. They normally
No, it's so
don't bark in
cute.
the background, but yeah. So this
No,
episode, guys, is gonna have my dog. It's featuring my dog Trixie in the background. So
Trixie. Oh, no, no, I was just confused because I hadn't heard a dog in my own home. So I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, I'm
um,
sorry about that.
no. Hello, Trixie. Welcome. What was I saying? Okay, so your question was about my digital footprint. I If anyone follows me on social media, they know that I deactivate pretty freaking frequently. It is a very therapeutic thing for me, because I know that I struggle with my appearance, and it's hard to talk about, but my pretty privilege, right? Like Wow, maybe this is the space to talk about it. Um, so whether I like it or not, I was born like what's the word? Traditionally pretty. Like um people have given me the benefit of the doubt, but they've also like all through my whole life, but they've also, um, doubted me because of my appearance. Like they don't see the value in my other things. So it's something. It's a very weird thing to navigate. I think I'm constantly like questioning myself. Like, am I in this space because people like my body, my appearance, like that I'm visually, aesthetically fitting to the space, or am I in the space because they like what I make, how I think, what I have to offer, like how interesting I am. I have to battle that in my head all the time, and so I realize that social media only really feeds that thing that I haven't worked through yet, because it's so much about appearance. I mean, obviously, people have accounts where they share other stuff, but because growing up, I've always been told the first thing, like, you're so pretty, oh, you look so good, like, like that's always the first compliment people tell me.
Yeah.
You Social media makes you like commodify whatever it is that you think you're valuable um, for, or valued for, and so it became really easy for me to post selfies and get easy validation. And then as I'm doing this work about like what do I care about, I'm like, I don't really care about selfies at all. And I've posted so many over the years, and so it's made me very like, as I reflect about my footprint so far, I'm like, I don't really stand by a lot of the stuff that I've posted, but that was part of me and I had to do that and whatever. So I'm always struggling with like, do I want to be that visible with, especially all the things that I don't relate to anymore? You know how social media can be pretty permanent, like the feed and all
Exactly.
that. And then there's days when I don't want to be seen at all. I'm like, I don't want people to have access to the things, so I archive, and I also take out from the archive all the time. Like I put things back on my feed depending on how I'm feeling. And some people might think like that's a very obsessive way to think about social media, but I'm trying to like not shame myself about the stuff that I'm working through right now. I can't tell if I prefer being online or if I prefer being offline, and I also deactivating lets me do both. So just trying to be kind to myself as I figure out how I want to navigate a digital space.
That's powerful. I think that's actually, honestly, if anyone ever has an issue with that, like, you let me know and I can talk to them, because that's no, that's so strong. Like, that's, if you, so oddly enough, I don't post as much content as normal people do. I kind of post maybe on my story here and there. I kind of just, I don't know if you've noticed or picked up on it, I'm very observant and analytical with all that
Hmm.
I do. So
Totally.
I don't like, just anything I post has some meaning to it. So my last post was probably like a year ago, and
Hmm.
I posted about a photo of my wife and us just going on a trip and enjoying our time, outside of our normal day to day. And I noticed with you, it's just, I appreciate and I love how much power you have behind your content, because like you said,
Hmm.
even though some people would call it quote unquote obsessive over it,
Hmm.
you know what you want and what you want at that moment, and that's very difficult, because a lot of people just post and they keep it on there because they're scared of the likes going away. They're scared of the stuff that's securing their own insight into who they are. They're
Hmm.
scared of losing it. For you, it's kind of like,
Hmm.
I'll bring it back, I won't bring it back, I'll deactivate, and the thing is that people are that's like the face value, that's just the front,
Hmm.
because ultimately, like, we've covered this before when we talked, is like, those are big moves. They're all calculated. No matter how
Hmm.
fast or how small that calculation is for you inside your head, you're already thinking about what you're going to be doing when you create your own content.
Yeah, and I mean, man, you have also, as I move into like a musician title, or artist title, like it sucks, but the social media is a marketing tool as well. And before I release any music, I'm like really trying to figure out, or I'm trying not to think about it, but I'm also trying to figure out like, is my social media just going to become some promotional tool, or can I continue to use it in this very like playful, organic, almost Facebook kind of way? Like to me, Instagram is just Facebook, but
I
for
like that.
millennials, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
because I have this friend. I'm gonna shout him out right now, but he changes his username all the time.
Okay.
It's Issa Clitoris.
I think you talked about them, or talked about her, or I don't know the person,
them,
but you
them.
posted about them earlier today. No, I think.
Probably, but they they are an online friend, and if you follow their account, oh my God, they post all the time, but it is such informative stuff. I'm just like, literally, I I think I told them like you told he told me when I followed him, um, that it would be annoying, that I would be annoyed, but I told him that it's actually such a refreshing use of social media, and it makes me question like all, you know how we were talking about all the structures in place and like how can we imagine or dream of
Yes.
like new ways.
Yeah.
Social media has become so calculated. It's
Oh,
really
yes.
frustrating, you know, how much people are logged on, but we're not honest about how logged on we are, right? Like we pretend like, oh yeah, no, I didn't spend, you know, like 11 hours on my phone, but like if you're going to be on your phone, why not post, why not share that informative thing that you saw, why not post a selfie, why not like do you on social media, it's fine. And I think the more that we like are just honest about our like social media habits, the more that we can like address them. Does that make sense?
No,
Like,
definitely. So the big thing for me is that, and I tell anyone that so I end up FaceTiming or contacting a lot of people through Instagram, and I end up calling them through video, video chat.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
recently I've been noticing that I have a time limit as to how much time I can spend on Instagram and Twitter. My
yeah,
wife actually helped me through that, where I was recently getting notifications like weekly by my phone telling me that I was spending about roughly 4.5, almost to 5 hours a day just on social media or
yep,
just on my phone, and it's really bad. So she was just like, I mean, do what I do if you want. It kind of helped me, and I feel less like worried about checking my phone, and I don't feel as attached to it. And I was like, well, what do you do? And she basically puts a limiter, once you exceed the limiter, I think she put mine for like 2 hours or
yeah,
2.5, and once I exceed it, like I end up seeing if it's really valuable as to why I'm on it, and if not, I just I jump off.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I just
mm-hmm.
leave my phone. I leave it and I go do something else. I walk my dogs. I do something. I listen to music. Um, but one big thing for me though is that when I do meet it and I'm on a call with someone that's really important to me, or like, so anyone I contact or reach out to, whoever if any of you guys are listening, you guys are important. And the reason why I'm calling you is for a reason, not just because I'm trying to like be a chismoso, or like I'm trying to just like, because some people are like that.
Yeah,
They'll just
no,
call to be
I'm
like, hey,
totally.
how's work? Oh, they just like gossiping. For me it's just like, how are you doing? How are your
Mm-hmm.
projects
Checking
coming along?
in.
I'm just checking in. I want to make sure you're good, you're finding your own success, because I'm doing the same, and I want you to grow together regardless if we're in contact every day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the limiting, I completely get that. I'm honest with anything. I tell people, I've already discussed my anxiety on here a little bit with the past episode.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared to be like an open book, so I tell them only certain things that I'm comfortable saying, but I'll never
Mm-hmm.
cover anything like regarding my wife that she's not comfortable with. I'll always ask beforehand. If I ever have
Mm-hmm.
an important conversation, I'll always ask my mom or like whoever I am talking to that's important and I want to talk about
Yes,
it. I
yes.
always cover and check in, because it's not my position. It's not a one-sided conversation. You know what I mean? It's not just me that's responsible for upholding someone else's trust in that conversation.
Yeah, and I think that also it's important to note, you said your wife and then your mom, like those are your direct like people, those are people in your real life, your community, right? Like as important as social media is, I think we're also having to come to terms with the fact that like that when you put your phone down and you like you realize that there is a reality like outside of your phone. I'm like trying to emphasize that like those people around you matter so much, and they're the ones that like together you can uplift them, they can uplift you, and you can like really strengthen each other. And like I don't know, those are the connections that really matter, right?
Definitely, those are the ones that shape who you are. Those are the
Yeah,
people that
yeah.
actually matter, because then you create, like, for yourself, we kind of built this whole idea as to what your title is gonna be. And
Mm-hmm.
we were really, like, I'm not gonna lie, I was really anxious as well, because I was like, damn, I don't want her to be offended by any of this, or like have like a certain look as to how I'm gonna try to. I hate the idea of categorizing anyone.
Okay.
So we kind of just came up with this idea of like content editor, not I mean content creator, because
I
you know
forgot
what I
about that.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's like you're happy with what you're making for the most part. You know what I mean? Because you
Oh
can
my
always
God.
adjust it, and So I like that idea of you, because like you said, you reiterated it without having to even bring it up. So it really stuck with me. So I always think of you as like a content editor, because I keep saying editor, content creator, because you're creating stuff that makes you happy, and you're always adjusting it, like if it doesn't make you happy, it's for a reason. So
it's gonna make me cry the way you said that, because content creator is just such a precious title.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Honestly, put that on cards, put that on your bio.
Yeah.
I hate what that's another thing.
The
I hate
thing
when
is,
people do
like,
that.
what?
When they put like content creator for, it's just like, well, you're a YouTuber, it's cool, like it's okay. You don't. That's what, remember we were talking about that, like the whole idea of like
The shame.
Yeah, the content creators being having like a bad rap, like
Yeah. Well, the only reason I feel like that's such a boomer mentality, like that, for when content creators get a bad rep, like it's people, just let people make what they want to make, and I think the content creator fits me well, because I'm so wishy-washy. I like one thing now, I like another thing the next, and I'm okay with that. And I also know that it's hard for anyone who follows me to keep up with that, because who knows what the hell's going on in my brain ever. So I'm like, some days, sorry, LaCroix, excuse
You're
me.
good. You're good. Just to double check, is that okay if I leave it in there, or you want me to
Oh
check
my
it
God, yeah, it's
Okay,
fine.
awesome. We're good. Oddly enough, so I have an idea, and I just want to run with it. I love it. So the idea of like content creator, and like, you remember how you said you first started, like when you listen to music, you talked about Taylor Swift, and she's pop. You've always loved like trends, and you've always loved trying new things.
Yes.
So that's really big for anyone that's like, people have to learn to pick up on the small things, because that's what really shapes. It's a although one small thing may occur at one time, if it continues to happen, it's actually big. You know what I mean?
Yep. And okay, so the trend thing, I think, is really important. Like, I am guilty of having followed a lot of trends my whole life, and I said I am guilty of, but I don't feel any guilt about it, because I every single thing that I've tried has, given me so much information, and I feel like I have such a big brain in pop culture, um, because I've followed so many trends, and I've played around with YouTube. I've played around in the music industry. I've played around in, like, I've been an extra on sets. I worked in the film department at UCLA. Like, I've tried every aspect of the entertainment industry, and I've also followed so many trends, and I feel like that is what childhood, teens, and the 20s are for. Is like, just try everything, figure out what you don't like, and every time I try something, I get closer and closer to like what I really value, and like not minimize, but just like kind of like a funnel, like, how the funnel gets smaller at the bottom.
I think the big thing too is that and I just reminder to anyone listening, is that you're all, like, whatever you value is always just momentary, like you're always your values are always changing, and it's okay to remember that, like,
well, not your values, but like your interests maybe.
Yes,
but your
exactly.
values stay the same.
Yeah, for the most part. So it
most part,
again ties back to the whole idea, like, you changed types of music that you liked, and the cities that you were in, but it was still music. You never went to like theater, like operas.
That's
or
so
like that.
true.
It's always
so
just
true.
music, and just finding different musics
that reminds me, when I was in the Netherlands studying abroad, I literally got into like club music, like
EDM?
DJ EDM.
Oof, I
for
love
6 months,
EDM.
dude, for 6 months I was an EDM head. How funny is that?
That's awesome, dude. Hell yeah. I mean, how's the scene out there for that? Actually, it just get like, a little sidetracked, but
Jesus, crazy. I drank way too much when I lived over there. I did smoke a lot, like a pot, and I think people started partying like really late, like 1 a.m., 4 a.m. sometimes. It was just a really reckless time of my life, and I was super depressed at the time, but because I acted out in like very manic ways. So I think I, had a really classic like young 20s in Europe experience.
That's dope. I'm glad you can talk about that. I'm glad that I brought that up somehow. I'm pretty sure you haven't thought about that in a minute, so.
Well, actually, our study abroad program reunion was supposed to be in September, but because of the pandemic, like, nobody's going to the Netherlands right now. Nobody's gonna accept a U.S. passport. But I have Colombia passport. Maybe I can still go.
You can sneak in.
Just kidding. I'm not going anywhere.
No one, everyone listening to it, she's not gonna try it.
I'm locked down. Yeah.
I think we covered it all. I'm okay.
We talked so much. Honestly, we could have a 2, 3, like so many follow-ups. I could talk to you forever, but
Awesome.
I feel like we covered a really good amount right now.
I think so too. Yeah, so on that note, I think we're just gonna end it here. It's always gonna be like an open conversation. We can come back, and if I have another season or however I'm gonna do these episodes, I'll make sure to always have you in mind, and I'll always hit you up in advance if you ever want to come back onto the show and just talk about stuff. Is there anything that I always give a space at the end where like you want to promote anything, or like a social handle, anything that you want to promote? Go ahead, you have your time, do your thing, and I'm gonna just stay quiet.
Honestly, I had not thought about this at all because I don't feel like I have anything to promote right now. But my Instagram is Manuela.Orejuela, and then my YouTube is linked in my bio, I guess. On my YouTube, I have a music video that I'm really proud of, which at the end of the day is just a really well produced YouTube video, because the song is not anything like what my album is going to be like. Yeah, I guess keep up with me on my Instagram and my YouTube. I also make DIY stuff, like hands-on painting and coloring stuff, and man, I don't know, but my album and EP, whatever it's gonna be, mixtape, is coming soon, so just keep your ears open.
Awesome. Okay. Well, again, I just want to say thank you for coming onto the podcast and sharing your information, knowledge, wisdom as you have, and I appreciate it.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Actually, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the title of the podcast is Unspoken Essentials, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess to just kind of bring it all back to like what that title is, how do you feel that we covered unspoken essentials today?
Definitely. So a big thing that I wasn't going to bring up, just as the like, I wanted to keep it as fluid as possible and make it seem like I didn't make any of it up or like try to mock up your own ideas. Yeah. You kind of always, every episode so far, I don't know if my listeners have like noticed, every single person that I've had always talks about being open and being okay with the idea of accepting new roles while they're still chasing their passion. Woo! So I didn't do that. That kind of just happened with the conversation. So I appreciate you, doing that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we covered it. We did good.
Totally. Oh, you're a great interviewer, by the way. You kept reading my minds and also bringing back to the topic as best as you could.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah.
Thank you for this.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate you coming on and acknowledging the fact that it's not easy, I would say. But yeah, we're gonna just end it here.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to reach out to me and let me know what you think, make sure to follow us on Instagram at the Unspoken Essentials. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcast, we'd appreciate a review. If you're listening on any other platforms, make sure to share us with your friends who maybe want to work in content creation or making music. Ultimately, have a great day, and we'll catch you on the next one.